Okay, cool. Chris, it's wonderful to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Pleasure. Great to meet you.
So before we get into your good work, I want to know this. I've tried to put this question to bed, but it's such a big deal. The global pandemic, 5 years ago, it was
hmm
really, really going. So many things were changing. How did you ultimately get through that time period, and how has it radiated and influenced what you do now in 2025?
Great question. For me, and perhaps for a lot of other mediums, it forced me especially, to go remote and work with Zoom, which at the time I and everybody else thought was going to be this horrible platform. We're like, "Well, it's not going to work." Ironically, what happened was that Spirit already knew how to work with it because basically we're working with the energy of a computer.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, this is fantastic. And so they started teaching us how to work with Zoom, work with a computer. And so next thing I know, my business went international.
Yeah.
And like it blew up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is fantastic. So now everything I do, 99% of everything I do is like, international. And well, not international, but on Zoom, a lot of it international. It's amazing because nobody has to go anywhere. So I'm able to connect with any person on the globe.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, even in healthcare, it was like telehealth became a thing where you didn't have to load up and drive somewhere, and
Yeah,
just that whole thing. It just expedites
totally.
everything.
Yeah, so it's ironically kind of it's helped certain businesses, it's hurt other businesses.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis.
Sure.
I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. They always get the truth out of us. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
hmm
them?
So what I tell a 12-year-old is I speak to people who have died, are no longer here on the planet with you, but are now still alive, just in a different form. We all have bodies. We've got this skin, this meat suit that we're wearing, but the consciousness that's inside, that we're always talking to ourselves, that's always alive. Whether you're 5 or 105, that never goes away. That's energy, because we know from quantum physics and all of our things that we've learned that energy cannot be destroyed. So even though the body falls apart, the consciousness, the mind, our thoughts never die. So when a person dies, they just go to a different form. Energy just shifts form. So I speak to those people who are still alive, but they're just not in a body anymore.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
So, what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream job?
I don't even remember what I wanted to be at 12 years old. I think I just wanted to be free and just like have fun. I can't even remember what I wanted to be.
So, talk to me a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born and raised, and what were
Yeah.
these gifts of being a medium and being able to see the other side? How did this happen?
I grew up as a child in Old Lyme, Connecticut, rural part of, Connecticut, back in the early 70s. And at the time, when I was like 6 or 7, I thought, oh, okay, well, this is just great. 'Cause I started, I was talking to the trees, I was talking to the animals, I was talking to everything that moved. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm having a great imagination. Wound up talking to people that were in front of me that nobody else could see. But I thought, oh, again, it's just my crazy imagination. I'm an only child, phenomenal. It didn't occur to me until, now that I look back on it, I'm like, wait a second, these are people that could actually talk back to me and have full conversations, and able to see them. That's different. That's not imagination. I'd grow up, and I'm still, I'm 6, 7 years old. I'm in my bedroom. I'd hear voices in the middle of my room. I'd freak out, think it was a monster. I'd feel a hand on my back, freak out, think it's a monster coming to take me away, right? So, and I'm feeling energy all around me all the time. I'm freaking out, thinking it's a monster. Kids are scared of the dark, ghost stories, the whole deal. So I'm thinking all these bad things. Um, so I'm like trying to push it away, push it down, push it down. And eventually it all kind of goes away. I kind of start getting, a little more logical as I get older and older. And so my logical brain starts analyzing and saying, oh, you can't do these childish things anymore. This is just child's play. So that kind of goes away, gets suppressed for a bunch of decades. Then I go to Wall Street, totally illogical. but I get stressed out, taking it out on my, wife and kids, and sorry, and everybody else. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta chill out. I gotta find a way to mellow out. And next thing I know, somebody's suggesting do, meditation. I'm like, all right, well, meditation, that's weird. I don't know, it's for freaks or people who live in, the Hindu Kush, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. But I started listening to this one audio track that was pretty cool. I'm like, oh, I can get used to that. That's calming. So I do that like for 15 minutes every day before work. I'm like, yeah, all right, this is good. Get addicted to it. Start doing it every single day. I can't stop doing it, and I wind up doing this for like 12 months straight. At the end of that 12 months, that's when I had my spiritual awakening, and it's like that was a whole nother story. That's kind of when the portal reopened up to kind of like being a child again. All those energies, all those voices, all those physical feelings came rushing back and flooding back.
It had to be very welcome to have that come back, huh? I mean, to have to suppress it and have it come back, or how did it feel?
It felt completely. At first, it was scary because I thought to myself, "Wait a second. There are only two types of people in the world that can hear voices in their head. They're either these gurus and mediums and wild special people, or they're crazy." And I thought to myself, well, I'm not a guru. I'm not some special high-powered medium. Oh my God, I'm going crazy. So I was like convinced I was going crazy. I was going to have to go to the funny farm. I was like, oh my God, my job has driven me to, go nuts. And it wasn't until I started researching and, taking classes and understanding all this stuff that, over, 6 to 12 months, I started understanding what it was, how to work with it. And then I just started diving in head first and taking like zillions of classes and working with mentors. And, over the course of years, I was like, oh, all right, I can do this. I'll be damned.
So everybody that I talk to that's in mediumship says that anybody has the ability, they can acquire that ability to get to this.
100%.
So my question to you is this, taking it a step further. There's obviously people where it's easier for them, especially in the beginning, to get this. How do you compartmentalize and wrap your head around the fact that this was so easy and it's so easy for some people? I mean,
Yeah. It's the reason first off, the reason everybody has the ability is that we all have non-physical senses. We all have psychic senses, and they're lying dormant in our hind brain. But all you got to do is look to, your gut instinct, right? When you get that gut feeling that you should be doing something, that's the psychic sense. That's that clairsentience based in your solar plexus. We all have it, but we just call it a different name. Or you go up to somebody that you've never met before and you see them for the first time. You don't even have to touch them, but you got a certain feeling about them. Like, oh, I got a feeling about that person, right? That's also clairsentience. It's your auras, your energetic field touching and getting their vibration. Because again, it goes back to quantum physics. We're all, energy which vibrates at different levels. So we can feel the vibration of the other person. We can pick up on these things. I mean, this goes back to prehistoric man, where we had to live. The only way we could live was to use our psychic senses to be able to find out what's hiding in that bush. Is that a saber-toothed tiger, or is there something else, right? So we were using those senses before we even had a frontal lobe to work with. Once that frontal lobe developed, and our modern brain develops, we no longer had use for what we can consider to be, ancient abilities that are just locked at the brainstem, but they're still there. All
yeah.
you got to do is begin to work with it. Why is it, covered over? Well, we already know that the brain's working with it, but B, it's also our ego mind. Our ego mind, ever since we're like age 2 or 3, has always been programmed to defend us versus the outside world. Because we quickly learned as little babies that it's us versus them, those big things, adults, whatever else. So it's our ego mind that suddenly forms this protective layer around us, and it's constantly shattering, constantly going, constantly yapping. It's the most obnoxious thing you could ever imagine. It's worse than your worst obnoxious person you can imagine. It's it's drowning out everything else you're hearing. It's drowning out everything that you could possibly be sensing. If you quiet down that ego mind, you'll suddenly reveal the little subtle um, words and awarenesses and things that are actually going on that have always been going on, but you just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Maybe you've got this sudden instinct or the sudden gut feeling or the sudden impulse to go do something. What do? You ignore it. You ignore your gut. You're like it comes and goes in a flash, but it's really really subtle, right?
Yeah.
It's so subtle you can barely hear it. It's like what was that? But our ego mind, our conscious mind, so loud, obnoxious, we don't even hear it. Even if
Yeah.
we do hear it, we ignore it. We're like, we just keep on going on.
Yeah.
So the way people connect to it is they learn to quiet and not fully suppress, but suppress as best they can
Yeah.
that loud, logical, analytical ego mind, so that they can start to become more and more aware of what's coming through. Because it's like the analogy is, it's like it's exactly like a radio station. All you got to do is tune in.
Yep.
But if you've got like interference coming in, you're not going to be able to hear the station. If you have
Yeah.
no interference, you're like, oh, there's the station.
Yeah, for sure. That's fascinating. What a great way of explaining that. So let me ask you this. Who's been that inspiration for you to become who you are?
The inspiration for me was Laura Lynn Jackson, because there's a story in my book about how I was on my bus one morning going to work, and we're on the ramp on the highway, and it's like early morning, not sun's not even up yet, and I'm kind of looking out the window, ho hum, and all of a sudden there's this gigantic billboard off to the right hand side, massive billboard for her book, The Light Between Us, and for some reason it was screaming at me, and I don't have a great memory, but this billboard was like just seared into my brain. I was like, there's got to be some reason for some reason I was like, I memorized that. I'm like, oh my God, I got to read that. I don't know why, but I got to read that. Obviously, Spirit was dropping breadcrumbs in front of me.
Yeah.
And so I read that book and I was like, oh my God, that's what I want. And I hadn't even really opened yet. I hadn't even had my awakening yet. But there were all these other books that for years I'd been pulled to, driven to. And like I was saying, for years, Spirit was dropping breadcrumbs and I was just eating them up, and I didn't know why. I had this fascination for anything non-spiritual, whether it was NDEs, whether it was scientific understandings of the brain. It was I just bleh.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into the much younger version of you, an 18-year-old version of you, you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
The young version of me, I would say, follow your passion, because your passion is going to be the motivation to drive you forward, but also follow the piece of you that's going to enable you to serve others, because that is going to be the other motivation. You're going to feel where you're compelled to move forward. So it's both a passion for the things that you love to do, but it's also a motivation that you feel fulfilled in your life to go and do something for others. Because for the longest time, I kept on, for example, like when I was in Wall Street for years and years, I was like, this is great, but it eroded my soul. It eroded my being to the point where I was like, not only can I not stand doing this, it's ripping me to shreds, but it's taking me to the point where I'm like taking it out on everybody else. I became a really nasty person.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I think about mediumship in the way that I do a surgeon. As a layperson that doesn't do that, what you do is a really it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing function to humanity. But you have to keep everything in check. Do you still get adrenaline every time you run into a client and you help them with the other side? What's your feeling? How do you process having this ability to see something that most people don't have the chance to see or hear?
Yeah, I have to pinch myself every single time because I am so honored that I'm even allowed to do this connection. Because I feel like I've been granted this ambassadorship from Spirit, and I'm like, I'm not worthy to do what it is that you want me to do, but I'll do it anyway. Thank you. And I feel honored to do it. I feel compelled to do it. And every single time bring through their loved ones and I see the transformation on their face from pain to joy, from tears and agony to bliss and sheer joy, it's like I I get a piece of that. Every time they're healed, I get a microscopic sliver of that healing as well. Also, the fact that because Spirit's kind of using me as an instrument, I'm getting all their energy. I'm getting all their spiritual healing. So it goes through me to them, and I get like a little piece of that, and I'm just like, wow, thank you.
Yeah. Why is it that cardinals and butterflies are this universal symbol of the afterlife and the spirits that we find comfort in?
I think they're the most common that people have come to understand, but in reality, it's any bird or insect can be used, and they've actually done studies about this. Scientists have done studies about how the brain of a bird can actually be hardwired by another connector to start interacting with us. You can literally take over a bird's brain and start having it do things that you want it to do. They did a study with these birds where they literally took a remote control and said, okay, I want this bird to go land on a windowsill. I want this bird to go land on the windowsill and start pecking at the glass. And sure enough, they put like these, I don't know, some kind of like electrodes or a cap or whatever it was on the bird, and they did something, and the bird would just follow the request. And that's what Spirit does. Spirit will request access to the bird. Apparently the bird says okay, and then the spirit basically, I don't want to say takes over, but accesses the bird's ability and does exactly the same thing. Goes on the windowsill, pecks at the window, does things that birds are not supposed to do. And scientists have been able to replicate that with birds as they test it. And you realize, like, oh my God, it really works.
That's wild. So let me ask you this. Of all of the travels and the journeys that you've been on up to this point, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I guess I'm just the proudest that I've been able to make a difference to, a small part of humanity, because it's always been my mission to raise the vibration and spiritual awareness of humanity, one person at a time.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that's known you, everyone that's worked with you, everyone that gets your book, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I think I'm not worthy. I think we all have this perception of ourselves that, we're it's the inner child, right? It's like, we all have to do inner child work. So we all feel like we're not worthy of what it is that we're doing. Some of us have gotten, beyond that. Other people have grown their egos to be a little bit too large, perhaps. I'm not going to name any names,
Yeah.
but for me, the way I look at myself, I'm just like, I just feel so humbled to have this opportunity to do what I do. I'm just like, okay, if you really want me to do it, I'll do it. But wow, thank you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Are you afraid of the other side? Are you afraid of death?
No, I don't want to say I welcome it, but I want to say I can't wait to experience it.
Yeah. I mean,
Can't
that's what
wait
I
to experience the other side. It'll be great.
and that's what I always hear with people that have had near death experiences or they've
Yeah.
felt the other side. There's this for most of us that haven't, there's this level. I mean, I've had dreams and they've given me a lot of comfort, but as far as like really feeling it on a regular basis, anybody that's really had that emotion, they're like, man, I wanted to stay there. I didn't want to come back. And then I came back and, that whole thing.
Right, right. Yeah, well, they'll have these near-death experiences where they're on the other side and they're experiencing um, unconditional love. I mean, that was the experience I had when I was, had my spiritual awakening. I'm on the other side. I'm over there, and it wasn't quite an NDE, but it was similar to it. And all these NDErs, say it's unconditional love. Where nothing is wrong, everything is perfect. You are perfect, and it's utter perfection, and nothing to worry about, and everything is pure love. And when you come back to the physical earth state, you're just like in this heavy body and you're feeling judgment and ego and pain and suffering. You're like, I don't want to be back here. That's why they all get upset and frustrated. And sometimes they kill themselves. They're like, I can't deal with this. I want to go back.
Yeah, right. That's wild. So let me ask you a question. If anyone wants to reach out, hire you, get your book, learn more, any questions, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
People want to connect with me, they can, reach out at chris@montclairmedium.com, or they can go to my website, montclairmedium.com. Those are perhaps the two best places they can, reach out.
Final question. This is kind of it's kind of like with therapy or people recognizing trauma in their life. When is the moment that people should come to you to have that interest in connecting to the other side? Is there like a red flag? Is there a clue for people that need to go to that next step?
Yeah, I feel it's when people have this desire to reach out to somebody that they love who happens to be in the spirit world. If they feel that they need that connection, or they feel they need that expansion, that's certainly a time to reach out. Uh, One thing I would caution people about would be, if you're doing this purely to get over your own grief process, it may not be the best time. In what you first need to do is to allow yourselves to get over that initial grief process, because it is a process. It's a multi-stage process. Allow yourself to get, partway through that grief process, because in the stage of your grief process, your vibration is going to be so low, it's going to interfere with your own reception, because, like I said earlier, it's like a radio where you're tuning in. If your vibration is so low, it's going to add that much more static.
Yeah.
The higher the vibration, the less static, and the better the connection.
Yeah, sounds about right. Chris, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck
Pleasure.
with everything. I appreciate it.
Great, great.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.